Welcome to the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos. Now, of course, let's really go bowling this weekend in college football. This week has been full of striking spares. However, I'm waiting on the playoffs. A perfect 300. Yes, that's right. All the good games here coming up on the new year. Now, this week, of course, Minnesota beat Washington State despite all the drama on campus. You know, they've got the rape allegations and things like that. They were able to come together and find some way to win this game. Now, we'll see what happens with Minnesota down the road because they've got a lot of stuff to handle in the offseason with Tracy Claeys and all the other players that had the issues that did not participate. However, Mike Leach just couldn't get it done at Washington State for the bowl game. What a sad ending to a much better season than we've seen in recent years in Washington State. Now, also, Northwestern beat Pitt. Pat Fitzgerald was salty, came out and called out my boy Danny Cannell on ESPN, saying that he was wrong for the 40 confidence points that he gave Pittsburgh over Northwestern. Said that he didn't think Northwestern would get up and be ready to play. Well, I tell you what, Pat Fitzgerald, he smelled a little smelling salt, and he got his team to come out and actually win that game. So congratulations to Northwestern. Miami and Utah both won. Texas A&M, how did you lose to Kansas State? I mean, old Bill Snyder, he's like the old man of winter. He finds a way to get it done in these bowl games when they play against specific teams some years. Now, there have been times where I've watched bowl games, for instance, when Kansas State played Oregon, and you see DeAnthony Thomas take it 90-something yards on the opening kickoff in the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago. But other than that, Kansas State plays well in bowl games, and they beat Texas A&M, so got to give them props. Michigan versus Florida State. Now, there's two games that I want to see this weekend that are not a playoff contest. One of those games being Michigan versus Florida State, Dalvin Cook versus Jabril Peppers in the Orange Bowl. Now, this is going to be a good game with contrasting styles. You got one Michigan team who likes to run and pound the ball down your throat. Now, Florida State, they'll pound it down your throat, but they've got that other element with DeAndre Francois where they can spread the ball out, run the read option. Michigan doesn't have those options to run the read option with people like Wilson Speight, which is why they take Mr. Jabril Peppers and put him back at quarterback. Wildcat, call it the Wild Wolf. Put him back there and allow him to run some offensive plays. So I look forward to seeing that matchup between Dalvin Cook and Jabril Peppers on defense. Who will be the enforcer? Will Dalvin Cook find those seams and break those long 20, 30-yard runs, 40-yard runs that he's known for? Or will Jabril Peppers and his other defensive cohorts find a way to stop and stifle this machine called Dalvin Cook? So that'll be a great matchup to watch in Florida. In the Orange Bowl. Now, that is in Florida. Now, another bowl game that I want to see, Louisville versus LSU. Now, Leonard Fournette already came out and said he's not balling because he's worried about his NFL future. So, do your thing, Leonard. Now, however, can Lamar Jackson, can he handle an SEC defense? We watched him against Auburn last year in the opening game. Now, granted, he was a freshman last year. He threw a pick his very first pass in college. Now, can he not be surprised by the speed and athleticism? Because, yes, the ACC has some athletes. But trust me, LSU, when you start playing teams in the SEC that are of the likes of LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia. When you play teams like that, you have to bring it because they will bring it. They've got big boys that can run on defense. So can Lamar Jackson handle this type of SEC defense? Now, Kentucky's one thing, but when you play an LSU, it's a whole other animal. And Darius Geis, he's great on offense at running back. So he's a 1,000-yard rusher. So this will be a good game. Danny Etling, can you handle that Louisville secondary? We shall see. If you can't, Brandon Harris may get your shot. You've been on ice half of the season, so maybe you get a chance to jump back into the frame. But there's plenty of high pulp and vitamin C in these two orange festive games this weekend. However, the big games, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Washington versus Alabama. That's an early game, 3 p.m. Both teams, they dance to different songs, I must say. Now, Alabama's made a living off of their defense, but they score on offense as well. And Washington's made a living scoring points and playing good defense, but mostly scoring points. So if we look at these teams' strengths, this is a battle and clash of those strengths. So we'll have to see what happens. However, Jake Brown in 42 TDs, he's got 7 picks. Can he limit those interceptions and turnovers and strip sacks? Can he limit those against Alabama? Jake Browning, don't be afraid to take a sack. Reuben Foster, he will come down your pipe and knock your chin strap to the left, to the right, not keep it in the middle. So make sure that you don't make dumb decisions. If it's not there, just take the sack. Don't do anything crazy because you don't want to give up a quick 14 points on defense in that game at some point because you made the mistake. Don't be that guy. Also, Jalen Hurts, he's a dual threat, 22 pass TDs. He brings the RPOs into the framework because he gives him a run pass option. Now, he can do the read option, he can hold it here, read that defensive end, and make a decision, and he's fast enough to make that decision, make the read, and actually make something out of it. We saw that against Tennessee. We saw that against Ole Miss. However, if you can get around the edge of those tackles and hit him good, you can maybe stifle this guy, but I don't think so that you can slow him up all the way just because he's a phenomenal player. And this is the best team that Alabama will face. Washington has players. They've got a good coach, Chris Peterson. And now defense holds the keys to this ship. Now, we're not talking about spaceships, the championship. Whoever's defense comes out and plays better, that will be the team that is playing in a couple weeks in the national championship. Alabama, in my opinion, wins this in a tight one because I think Washington will come out, be competitive, but just too late. Alabama will have too much, and I don't think Washington can withstand all of those special forces that they've got on the 1, 2 deep, even 3 deep. So Alabama, looking forward to seeing that game this weekend. Washington will compete. Now, Ohio State versus Clemson, PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, J.T. Barrett versus Deshaun Watson. Great quarterback matchup. Deshaun Watson, 15 interceptions on the season. Now, this will definitely be the best creme de la creme defense that Deshaun Watson has faced, and they are not basic. I've said before, Oklahoma's backup quarterback, you learned it. You learned it. Now, Jadar Johnson, this guy's always running his mouth, a.k.a. motor mouth. This guy comes out and calls J.T. Barrett basically, he's okay. J.T. Barrett, not the best quarterback we face. Well, I have news for you, Mr. Jadar Johnson. J.T. Barrett is a baller. That's 2 words, baller. You can ball, but there's one thing to ball and have the earl. So he's a baller, Mr. J.T. Barrett. So Jadar Johnson, don't disrespect the person who's been there. He's been there to the playoff as well. May have been hurt, but Ohio State and Clemson, they've both been there in the playoff. Now, this will be a high-scoring game, but I think Clemson wins it. However, the coaching experience on this stage is relatively similar. So I look forward to seeing these two teams go at it, and I don't think the Buckeyes just have enough to actually come out and walk away with that victory, if that makes sense. Now, moving to the NBA and some hoops. NBA, George Karl, he's blatantly pillow talking in his new tell-out book, Furious George. And it talks about clueless GMs and NBA divas surviving all that after 40 years in the NBA. Yeah, all that's fine and dandy, Mr. Karl, but you're violating trust of these people who played for you, who worked with you, by exposing private conversations, private interactions to make a little extra change. What are you trying to do? You didn't make enough millions when you were coaching in the NBA, so you want to come out and write this book. Now, I guess people of George Karl's caliber, I guess he thinks he's Phil Jackson's caliber, so he can come out and write a book, per se. I don't think he is. Yeah, you coach Gary Payton, but, George Karl, what championship did you win with Gary Payton? It's kind of irrelevant to me. Now, the comments about Carmelo are tired. Everybody knows Carmelo's a ball hog, but you had to come out and say it in a book. Oh, well. Now, speaking of Carmelo, he beat two-piece Thabo Cephalosha last night, New York versus Atlanta, but we'll leave him alone for now. Now, talks about the lack of a father figure. To comment on someone's socioeconomic dynamic when you did not grow up in their household, you're not from their community, so you really can't relate. You just directly dealt with black men, a volume of black men who did not have or may have a lack of father in the home. But to sit and try to critique that, George Karl, last time I checked, you're an NBA coach. You're not a psychological therapist. You're not a shrink. You're not a counselor. So for you to comment on the lack of a father figure contributing to how they are as people and basketball players, no. Way out of line. Way out of bounds. So chill out with that, Mr. Coach Karl. Now, have you read $40 Million Slaves? Maybe if you want to have a more firm grasp on the African American athlete and making comments about the lack of a father figure, maybe you should read that book by William Roden, who's a reporter on the Sports Reporters on ESPN. Maybe you should check out that book and learn a little bit more before you make certain demographical comments that could be damaging. Now we all talking about you, man. Now, not careful. I think that Karl could actually end up getting Pete Rose from the Hall of Fame. You got to be cautious, sir, because you're running your mouth a lot. So cool out with that, George Karl. Now, on a high note last night, Oregon jabs UCLA and everyone from Westwood right in the heart a month and a half before Valentine's Day. Now, back in the days, the Ducks were bums. They're not a bum anymore. Now, the reason I say that is because they hit the buzzer beater against UCLA last night, handing the Bruins their first loss. Buzzer beater, Dylan Brooks. That guy was hurt earlier in the season, had a bad foot, did something nice against Tennessee, but followed it up last night with something even better by hitting that buzzer beater. He's lucky everybody wasn't on campus because that floor probably would have been covered. Phil Knight was there. You hit that in front of the Nike man. Phil Knight, send him some shoes. Send Dylan Brooks some shoes in Oregon. So I really liked this game. It was a great game. Two teams that ran up and down. However, UCLA just couldn't seem to close it out at the end. Now, Steve Alford missed a free throw late in the game, 87% shooter, and you missed that free throw? I mean, he's probably on the bus last night or the plane. Dad, it's not my fault. He's a coach's son, of course. Dad, it's not my fault. Now, Lonzo Ball's electrifying. He played bad the first half, but came out in second half and Lonzo balled. So, UCLA, I'm not worried about him. This is just one of those games that you lose on the road. Nobody really goes undefeated anymore. We saw what happened when Kentucky did it. They lost at the worst time. So UCLA, don't fret. This team won't lose more than 4 games all year. I guarantee. UCLA is a great team. They might not lose more than 3. They may not lose another, but we shall see. Now, I'll see you all in the new year. That's on Tuesday, January 2nd. Can't wait to wrap. A lot of sports this weekend. And definitely, I look forward to kicking off a new year with some Zo-Knowers. Let's make 2017 Zo-rific. Thank you for watching Zo Know Sports, where you know Zo knows.